What is happening, everyone? Welcome to the Gabriel Speaks podcast and some UFO news and updates. We've got, a few things on the agenda today. It's been quite the couple of weeks. So we're going to start off looking into Donald Trump Jr.'s drone company, Unusual Machines. Now, I say his drone company. It's not his. He was a purchaser of many shares and then was invited to be a member of the board. So we're going to look into that and American manufactured drones and drone parts. Really, the drone parts is what Unusual Machines is about. We're going to talk about Eric Davis's request to Donald Trump saying, hey, I will let the cat out of the bag and tell you everything that I know if you write an executive order saying that I'm not held liable for my NDAs that I signed in the process, which could get very legally complicated and maybe impossible, which might be why he said it in the first place. Varginha, Brazil. Now, this is a story that goes back many decades. Moment of Contact is a documentary that James Fox made about that night in Brazil when a UFO crashed and an alien was actually recovered by people. One of the people, the person that handled it the most, is said to have gotten very sick and passed away. It was said that the alien was transported to a hospital, and the reason we're talking about this now is one of the surgeons that apparently worked at that hospital is now coming forward and making a statement about what he saw that evening. Pretty amazing stuff. So that's a story that has a lot of witnesses and a lot of accounts, and there's a reason James Fox is very interested in that story. NASA has a new administrator, Jared Isaacman. What's interesting about this is that Isaacman was nominated a while ago by Trump, several months ago. He actually went through a Senate committee nomination hearing, and then his nomination was withdrawn. Now he's back because Trump wants him back in the position. We'll talk about that. And the UAP Disclosure Act, it was attached to the 2024 NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, and it was completely gutted the first time and then totally denied the second time. Representative Burleson, who's on the UAP task force, actually had to vote against the UAP Disclosure Act because it was attached to the National Defense Authorization Act. Now, how crazy is that? That because it's attached to that NDAA, he essentially had to vote against the way he wanted to vote. So they're talking about a solution for that, and we'll get into that. We'll also talk about who voted for and who voted against. So, starting off, let's start with Trump Jr.'s drone company. Unusual Machines. I'm sorry, I had a brain fart there for a moment. Couldn't think of the name. Unusual Machines. That is the name of the company. Again, Trump invested in this company about a year ago or so. It's run by Alan Evans. He's a chief executive officer. And Mr. Evans has a really interesting story. He was appointed as director of the company in 2023. Previously, he was chief operating officer, COO of Red Cat from January 21 to November 23. He was a CEO of a company called Fat Shark. He's an entrepreneur with a history of founding and leading technological innovation. He has extensive experience in overseeing different emerging technologies. Something we've heard come up quite a bit. From August 2017 to October 2020, he served as board member for Ballast Technologies. And that company specialized in location-based entertainment, which obviously in 2020, probably not a great field to be in. In November 2012, he co-founded Avigant, I'm not sure. Avigant, a technology company focused on developing next generation display technology to enable previously impossible augmented reality experiences. That's pretty amazing. He led design, development, and initial production of glyph head mounted display and oversaw technology research and patent strategy while serving as chief technology officer. He has 47. That's right, 47 pending or issued patents that cover a range of technologies from implantable medical devices to mixed reality headsets. I mean, holy cow. You know, when I read that, it made me think of like Tim Taylor, the Diana Pasulka's contact and source that she used when writing her book American Cosmic. Just a insane overachiever. So Trump Jr. invests in Unusual Machines. I'm not sure if it's like a huge purchase of shares or not, but he buys a lot, enough that it's noticeable by the CEO. They get to talking. Something that's important here is that Unusual Machines like wasn't posting a profit. The good things that the selling points basically that they were using was they were American made, and they were addressing the component need, like the need for replacement hardware components, which apparently was a need or is a need that they're trying to fill. Well, here's where it gets kind of weird and kind of dicey. The company itself was basically, it wasn't doing very well. It was operating in the red, and it needed a boost to even survive. You know, in the red, you're paying out more than you're bringing in. A company can only survive so long that way. Here's where, like I said, it gets a little dicey and also very interesting, because the CEO of Unusual Machines gets together with Trump Jr., gets Trump Jr. on the board, lobbies Trump, the president, to pass a bill that would help Unusual Machines' bottom line regarding drones. Then they get this contract with the United States Army. And they haven't released the exact numbers, what the amount of that contract will be. But if you use your AI and run a bunch of averages, a bunch of numbers, essentially you could be looking at anywhere between as low as 4 million and as high as 12.8 million. And this is a company that was in the red not too long ago. Now they have more orders than they know what to do with. It's pretty incredible. So we're going to take a look at, to start out with, Unusual Machines. This is the CEO. And this was 1 year ago. So we're gonna kind of track this timeline here. So this is 1 year ago, the CEO of Unusual Machines.
I'm Alan Evans, the CEO of Unusual Machines. We're a drone and drone parts company traded on the New York Stock Exchange American under the symbol UMAC. I want to talk about everybody's favorite topic, government regulations. In this case, government regulations are going to have a major impact on the U.S. drone industry. In December of 2023, the American Securities Drone Act was passed as part of the defense bill. This act has a lot in it, but what it really boils down to is that by January of 2026, no government money can be spent on buying Chinese drones or operating Chinese drones. An example of what this would look like is, let's say the Department of Transportation wants to inspect a section of freeway. Typically, they'd go and hire a drone services contractor to go fly the inspection. That'll still happen in 2026, but they can't go contract a drone services provider that would then pay the salary of somebody to even fly a Chinese drone.
So what he is doing here is saying we need to change this bill. He's lobbying to change the law so that we can continue to import and export Chinese drone technology.
And so it's not just going to create a marketplace for the U.S. government to need to buy American drones. A lot of these drone service providers do some percentage of work for the government, and they're going to need to go buy American-made drones too. This is going to create a huge push for domestic production of drones. Different kinds of drones for different activities. What is required from these drone manufacturers is a supply chain that then lets them be compliant with the laws. Right now, most of the supply chain for things like motors or motor controllers, that still all comes out of China. And what there is there's this really large opportunity to become this dominant supplier to provide all of these companies with these pieces that they need as they try to build up and serve the government and the American people and the businesses that are going to need to replace their drones. A different set of regulations that are going to need to replace their drones. A different set of regulations in terms of this industry come from the FAA, right? We have these things flying all over the place. And so you'd expect the FAA to regulate it. They've been very proactive and just recently passed remote ID laws, which let you do things like fly beyond visual line of sight, or they sort of beep out for more autonomous flight. And they're now working on Part 108 rulemaking, which is going to be how the FAA regulates things like drone delivery or other aspects that are going to not just change the current market from China, but expand the market dramatically in terms of what people are going to be able to build and use drones for. You know, this regulatory change has been what sort of slowed down delivery, for instance, and it's now pipelined and will probably hit around the same time, maybe a year later. What we're trying to do at Unusual Machines is get in front of the demand that these companies are going to have. If you want to look at parallels, if you look at the automotive or aerospace industries, these companies have qualified tier 1 suppliers who then go qualify and test all the parts because they can't individually do it. So for instance, all the seats in airlines aren't made by Boeing. They're made by a tier 1 supplier and they meet all the quality requirements. That is absolutely important for an industry to function effectively. And that's where Unusual Machines sits. We're moving in to become that certified, qualified tier 1 supplier to all of these companies that are about to really come on the scene in a very dramatic way in the US. These regulated industries really function the most effectively with tiered supply chains. If you look at automotive, for instance, Bosch is a tier 1 supplier. They provide all these parts that GM and Ford use, and they're a huge company in their own right. And then once these automotive or these aerospace companies qualify a supplier, it's very difficult to change because they need to be sure that they're working with people that provide high quality parts. Let's just take drones for a market, for instance. And let's say McDonald's or some other company is doing drone delivery. We know Walmart's working on it right now, for instance. If a drone has a motor failure and falls out of the sky, that's a huge problem. For the companies that are making the drones then, they need this certified supply chain, and then when the FAA comes to decide to say, yes, you can fly this or not, they actually audit the whole chain. And this is a part of the industry that just isn't there yet. And we think by solving this problem, we can enable a lot more of these applications, reduce accidents, and improve compliance. Drones are still a new industry, and this regulatory shift to domestic production is going to come with a lot of maturity and a lot of oversight from the FAA and a lot of new applications like delivery. In doing that, you're going to see the emergence of a tiered supply chain, just like you do in automotive or in aerospace, and all of the quality that comes with it. That's really what has us excited, is we can sit in a place to build quality, meet the regulatory needs, and ultimately meet the safety needs so that we can see drones become a giant additional industry. If you want to learn more about what we're doing or more about how these regulatory changes are going to open up a giant domestic industry, please visit us at unusualmachines.com.
So, good communicator makes a rational argument, right? Saying that, look, if we can't get import and export with China, we're really, shooting ourselves in the foot. Because it's gonna put some folks in a situation where they can't even fix parts. They're gonna just have to buy a new drone. So that makes sense. But anytime there's a rich business owner that says deregulation or deregulating something is good, you should look into that. Just general rule of thumb, just speaking from experience. They didn't get rich by being nice guys and playing fair. Typically, people get rich by stepping on throats and making those decisions that a lot of us, the rest of us with a conscience, we couldn't sleep at night. But it's very easy for some of these folks to distinguish and differentiate between business and personal. And that, truly embrace that saying, it's not personal, it's business. This is an article from a year ago again. If we look at the date, well, not quite a year ago. Well, yeah, over a year ago. So June 26, 2024. And this is Alan Evans advocates for CHIPS Act style incentives to accelerate domestic drone manufacturing and reduce reliance on Chinese technology. So he wants us to be able to trade with them, but wants to reduce the dependence, which makes sense, right? It's a scaled approach. You don't just flip off the switch. So U.S. government considers taking steps to limit the importation of Chinese manufactured drones. It should also consider passing legislation that would incentivize domestic drone producers to innovate their products, the former chief operating officer of American drone company Red Cat Holdings said in an interview, and that is Mr. Evans. I think that as the U.S. government goes toward eliminating being able to import China's DJI from the marketplace without some additional offset to accelerate or jumpstart domestic manufacturing, you'll see it take a very long time and require investment down the road to get us to parity. He's currently CEO of aviation component manufacturing company Unusual Machines, said he thinks that in order to help the domestic drone industry, Congress should pass a law similar to the CHIPS Act, which provides incentives to U.S. microchip makers. So that's going to be doing things like tax credits for producing X amount of a product, or tax credits for selling X amount of product to a specific group of individuals or whatever, businesses. Again, this is it's easy to get into some fuckery here. So 1 year, this is June 20, what did it say? 26, 2024. That's when this article was written about boosting legislation for drone innovations. Between that time and now, Donald Trump Jr. has joined Unusual Machines board. And almost a year to the date later, an executive order is issued regarding drone production and incentivizing drone production. And here is the executive order here, so you don't have to take my word for it. Unleashing American drone dominance. So, straight to the White House. That's a lot of influence, y'all. That's a lot of pull. And yeah, let's take a look at a story just from 6 months ago. 6 months ago, and then we're going to look at a couple of stories today.
Alan Evans is the CEO of Unusual Machines, and we're very excited to say Alan is taking the time out of his very busy schedule to join us here for a one-on-one interview. Alan, great to have you.
I really appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
So let's start with the basics here, especially for any of our viewers might be a bit unfamiliar with the work you and your colleagues do at Unusual Machines. How do you see your company fitting into the so-called drone economy right now in the U.S.?
Yeah, we build drone parts. So we've been trying to onshore a bunch of parts. There's all these really great drone companies that are changing everything, and they need suppliers. So we look at it that way. It's very simply, just onshoring the parts.
To that point, a few really exciting acquisitions, companies with some really cool names, I got to admit. Fat Shark, Rotor Riot, how do those companies fit into your overall strategic picture recently? Yeah,
so that's we started with those, like we IPO'd and brought them in, and they really are consumer drone parts businesses, particularly for FPV. So in the industry where you wear the goggles, And what we have is this e-commerce business, Rotor Riot, where if you were going to go fly drones in your backyard, you'd go buy an FPV kit and put it together. We realized we're selling like 20,000 motors, 8,000 drone flight computers, all these things to customers. So then by moving away from China and moving to USA made components that we make or source ourselves, we can be our own first customer. And in doing that, we can hit the volumes necessary to pass the savings on to not just our customers, but any enterprises that buy from us, like US government agencies, and really overcome that, how do you get to 10,000 of a thing barrier?
So you mentioned China, obviously, in terms of artificial intelligence, we got this kind of current AI Cold War going on. Obviously, the big story of the week here, DeepSeek contributing to the wiping out of some $600 billion in NVIDIA value alone earlier this week. How does China's progress on drones compare to that of the United States?
Way ahead. The Chinese company, particularly DJI in the small drone category, dominated the entire world. I mean, amazing. And so this is one case where we're playing catch up, and we're playing catch up not just on the final product in a lot of ways, but also on the whole supply chain, because they dominated the industry. Millions of drone motors and millions of flight computers and millions of all those things were being made in particularly in the Shenzhen area of China. And so, really appreciate a lot of the legislation sort of kicking them out. So we have the ability to really play catch up in the domestic marketplace.
So to that point, the legislation we did have from former President Joe Biden helping lead that effort here to essentially ban Chinese drone makers like DJI. Were you in support of that particular push from the former White House? And is it your expectation that the Trump administration will continue with that push?
So I would say the American Security Drone Act, which was part of that push, was approved unanimously through the Senate and was actually introduced by Stefanik, who is now, part of the Trump administration. So I think this is one of the places where everybody, red, blue, they all agree. They all think, hey, we need to really support the domestic drone ecosystem and build it out. And if you look at the news.
Yeah, and it helps if you got a guy on the board whose dad is the president.
Secretary of Defense, he's pro-drone, Elon's pro-drone. I think you see everybody realizing this is a big deal, and it not even being a political football, but just being a necessary thing.
But it's not just pro-drone, it's pro-American manufactured drone, correct? And why is that so important to the overall equation?
The easy way I look at it from a defense perspective is if you have great drones, but none of the drone parts, or you're not making them yourself, it's like having great guns and no bullets. Like if something comes up, you just don't have the supply for it. And we saw it.
Okay. So 6 months ago, Trump Jr. is on the board now. We've got the bill just passed. Share price, boom, we're up to $7.50. So a year ago, we were at $2.36. And yeah, spoiler alert, current value, $11.52. So a year ago, before Trump Jr. joins, before the legislation gets passed, we had a value at $2.36 a share, and we're operating in the red. So the shares have a low value, and we're operating in the red. Trump Jr. bought a bunch of those shares at $2.36. Join the board, legislation gets passed. And you're going to hear something pretty crazy. Before this started, Donald Trump Jr.'s net value, like his liquidity, was around $50 million. Today, his value is around $500 million. You heard that correctly. In 1 year, from 50 million to $500 million. That is insane. Like, nobody should be able to make that much money that quickly. That's out of control. $500 million in a year. And nobody, there's no red flags, no nothing. Nobody gives a shit. Okay. All right. So 6 months ago, we had our share price at $7.50. Let's take a look at a couple of highlights on the market coverage.
UMAC, unusual machines, unusual activity. This is one for space fans, Trump fans, and even the son of a Trump fan. Son of a Trump fan? Son of Trump? That's what I meant to say. Are you ready? Do you know why this has gone up today? UMAC, unusual machines. What's going on today? Up 74%. Boom. This isn't normal. What's going on? I shall bring you the news. Do you want the news? Click, smash the like button. Click, smash. Click the smash. Yeah, smash the click. Click the smash and smash the like. That's
there
it.
We go.
Subscribe and ring the bell. I'm about to bring you some news, but it's so good. It's so good. I'm not going to bring it.
If you're watching me on YouTube, you smash the click and like the click thing too, okay?
To you. I'm not going to bring it to you until everyone taps the like button. And when you do it, this happens. The little fellas go, we like it. We love it.
Okay.
We love it. Apart from the ones that bite my leg. But don't worry about it. Things all ended up all right. Things ended up all right on that. I'm okay with that now. It all worked out well in the end. All right, so here we go. Unusual machines. I sued them for $10 million. It was brilliant. That's why my portfolio has gone up today. Unusual machines. I'm joking, by the way. Unusual machines. Some big news today. What's going on? You want to know? Let me tell you. Unusual machines skyrockets after naming Trump Jr. as advisor. Wow. There we go. Didn't make anything, didn't do anything, didn't earn any money. We just said, Trump Jr. is the advisor. Bye, bye, bye. I guess because people think, well, his dad.
Yeah, that guy cracks me up. So that was the energy kind of right after the acquisition. You see the share price 6 months later, leveled out to 750. But we get that legislation and then we see another bump. And this again, so this is right around the time that legislation was passed.
President Trump's drone order just signed is going to make the sector of drones and aerospace related stocks go absolutely bananas. And there's a huge opportunity in there for people who understand which stocks are the right ones to buy, which are the ones to avoid. So I'm going to give you here 7 stocks that I think are going to benefit tremendously from this. I'll also give you an ETF if you're really, really lazy. And the people who benefit the most from this are those who understand the rules of when to buy and when to sell. And there's a very simple rules that Wall Street has been using for decades. And just to give you a little incentive to learn those rules, I'm just going to show you what we did last month, right? And then we're going to jump into the stocks. You can see my performance for May on the chart here, and you see that most days we incur small losses. You might be like, oh no, Felix, he doesn't know what he's doing, right? And then we incur a couple of these great big green wins here. So it looks like for the month, we're up 1.7%, which would be terrible because we would have failed against the market. But that is realized P&L. So,
and look at the title of this video. Trump's drone stocks will make you rich.
Those are things that got stopped out, and that is mostly risk management and profit taking. But the small losses are actually what makes us money. And then if you go over here on the right, you see realized P&L, that $5,000, unrealized P&L, $40,000. So we actually did $35,000 in this particular stock portfolio, which means what? Well, we did something like plus 15% on the month, right? Which is 3 times what the market did. How do we do that? We slavishly follow the rules. And I give you those rules for free. I know most people will never learn them because they're always hoping for that, one magic stock that'll bail them out. But if you're somebody who actually just wants consistency, and look at that, we've got a lot. Our mission here is to make 1 million of you free, and then
It's,
YouTube
looks like a lot of
that does not look like
self-promotion.
something you get from Amazon. I hope. Is this out of LA this morning? Probably, right?
Holy shit, that's terrifying, right? That's what the Ukrainians are doing to the Russians. They're just strapping these things to the drones, and man, I saw one video where the dude was they had the camera like on the end of the missile, and they were literally, this guy was trying to run away and they were literally chasing this guy with the missile. It was so fucking crazy looking.
Drone hunting for ICE terrorists, as they call them. Anyway.
And I see you. What's up, Jess? What's up, Ron? Thanks for hopping in. Hope y'all are having a good day.
The problem with eVTOLs and the drone space generally has been this: BVLOS. Yes, the acronym is what held us up. Basically, you were allowed to fly drones.
Okay, beyond visual line of sight. So, without having seen this before, I'm betting we could fast forward and get to the part where Unusual Machines makes the accessory, the headset that you can see without having to actually see the drone or be there. You can just view the camera from the drone on your goggles. And oh, by the way, the CEO of Unusual Machines ran a company and developed the technology that took that AR, augmented reality, to the next level. Over 40 patents, and many of those have to do with the headset, the AR, the forward-looking glass, all that stuff. So it is the right guy, the right idea, and I'm not claiming really anything like super nefarious. I'm just showing the obvious that Trump Jr. saw the opportunity in this drone company, invested money, joined the board. Now, we can't say whether or not Trump Sr. knew that he needed to pass this bill to send this company just propelling to the net, just blow it up to the next level. Because that's what happened. It went from operating in the red and maybe not making it to like, boom, huge deal. Army contracts. And not just the Army contract. The Army contract said, the people that negotiated the Army contract said that there could definitely be more contracts coming from Unusual Machines down the road. They've also negotiated additional private contracts not even affiliated with the government. So they are really off into the stratosphere, it seems like. But there are some ethical questions. So let's take a look at some of the reporting that's been done about like some of the ethics, right? Like, was this okay? Was it legal? And so we're going to bring up someone smarter than me. In fact, a few people smarter than me, because I don't know. I really don't know. It's so obvious what was done, but I don't know that any of it was illegal. It seems like it should be, but is it? Okay, let's get into this here.
I guess if you've been following Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. And their business endeavors over the past year or so, they've been involved in a lot of different industries. They've gotten into crypto, they've gotten into drones, manufacturing SPACs. But if you kind of pull back the curtain, there's one guy who's been involved and played a role in all of these deals. And as you mentioned, his name is Kyle Wool. He works in this kind of section of the stock market that's normally pretty unglamorous world of micro caps, so very small publicly traded companies.
I mean, we're hesitant to ever like even sometimes report on them. Like we're careful about it. We're cautious, aren't we?
It's more that these are the types of companies that are so small in comparison to, like, we're not talking about like the Microsofts and Apples of the world. These are relatively small. They can be wildly volatile. Investors are kind of warned by regulators that this is a corner of the market that can be more susceptible to fraud sometimes. So it's kind of, like I said, like a little bit unglamorous, maybe forgotten part of the investing world. And so
Now and that's why you listen to the experts, because she sounded like that was common knowledge. I had no idea that investing in drones is a market that has been known for shadiness. That's an interesting data point.
What we've seen in February is that the Trumps have become advisors to Dominari, which is a bank, an investment bank that helps kind of shepherd some of these microcaps onto public markets.
How did he even situate himself to that? Because I looked him up, and in your story, you detail that he kind of had this traditional Wall Street path, but then now he's somewhat a financial fixer, or he's in the middle of all of these gains.
So this is...
He might not, yeah, he's not exactly...
They're talking about right now the banker that brokered the deal.
A household name, but he has had a path from Morgan Stanley, Oppenheimer, names that are well known. Dominari may be a bit less known, but in February, when the Trumps joined, I think that's when when people really became interested in this company, and they were wondering, what is it? What does it do? So Don Jr. and Eric joined as advisors, and they've also been cut in on deals that are incredibly lucrative in an incredibly short period of time.
Well, Zach, come on in on this. And yeah, I thought about that too. It's like, I'm sure the Trumps get lots of propositions of look at my company or come work with us and stuff. So it's always intriguing to see how someone actually makes some inroads. But talk to us a little bit more about that. And then what he did in terms of helping grow some of the Trump wealth, particularly for Don Jr. and Eric Trump.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Kind of two things happened around the same time. One was that when Trump was out of office, but between his first term and his second, Kyle Wool and his investment bank, Dominari, sort of made a conscious effort to get to know the Trumps and to kind of
I am so sorry, y'all. I didn't realize I wasn't muted. I'm sitting here crunching my ice right in your ear. Jess says he knew. What did he know, Jess? He knew that that if he did this, the legislation was going to pass and they were going to get rich. Yeah, that is a absolute possibility. But again, I don't know if that's illegal. You would think it would be, but like some of the things these people do are legal, blow my mind. So I really don't know. If we have a legal expert in here that could tell us, it seems more like an ethical thing, but that can get you into legal trouble. So here's another report from another network here.
A Pentagon-awarded contract to a company with close ties to Donald Trump Jr. has led to some ethical questions. The Pentagon awarded a contract to Florida-based company Unusual Machines to build 3,500 drone motors and other parts. Trump Jr. is a major shareholder with that company and will benefit financially from this deal. The president's son also helped to screen candidates for top jobs at the Pentagon following his father's election.
This is very problematic from an ethics perspective to have the grown children of the President of the United States entering into contracts with the Department of Defense without rigorous review of those contracts by independent experts to determine whether the contract is in the interest of the United States and our national security and at a fair price. This is very inappropriate unless those precautions have been taken.
Spokespeople for Trump Jr. denied that he reached out to government officials on behalf of Unusual Machines. Don has never communicated with anyone in the administration on behalf of Unusual Machines or about the contract in question. His advisory role with them has nothing to do with interfacing with the government, a spokesperson told the Financial Times. Trump Jr. isn't the first presidential child dealing with ethics questions. Ethics officials were critical of Joe Biden's son Hunter, sitting on the board of a Ukrainian energy company while his father was vice president.
It was on a much smaller scale. But Hunter Biden's involvement in Ukraine at the time that his father was vice president of the United States, handling Ukraine policy for President Obama, that was very, very problematic, what was going on there.
For the Trump family, this is not the first ethics issue to arise, including over a cryptocurrency company founded by Trump and his sons that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
There is massive amount of campaign contributions coming into this Congress from the crypto industry.
Do you want to apologize, Senator Gillibrand?
That's Painter testifying before the Senate Banking Committee in July over Trump's crypto investments.
This appears to be part of a pattern of President Trump's grown children, Don Jr. and Eric, and then we also see Jared and Ivanka, now that they're not in the Trump administration, and others in the Trump family benefiting from official decisions by the president himself or members of his administration.
Yeah, Jen brings up a couple of great points here. One, I don't think it's illegal yet, right? And then the second thing, what you just pointed to, Hunter Biden, he was doing the same thing in Ukraine, right? So yeah, they have been doing this stuff for years. And even though, there is, I know the law saying the president can't benefit from foreign powers. I can't remember the name of the law, but every president has benefited from being the president. I mean, even some people will say Abe Lincoln's the greatest president ever. Even Abe Lincoln sold the railroads to his brother, who, God, made $1 gajillion at the time off of that. So it seems like every president, our second president, John Adams, used his power to get his son out of jail in Spain. So, yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things. Is it ethical? Probably not. It's probably not ethical to do that because it sounds rigged. It doesn't seem fair to other people that are trying to compete in the same game, if that makes sense. Okay, we are going to move on. We had like I said, a very interesting week. Eric Davis saying in an interview, hey, you get me a Trump executive order and I will testify under oath what I know about, I think he said, essentially anything UFO, UAP, UFO, including landing and anything else he may know. I'm going to add the video here. This is the actual interview.
We have bodies where.
And so this is with James Fox on News Nation. And I'm going to start it over because I was talking there, but you heard he's saying we have aliens, we have craft, such and such, and Eric Davis is agreeing with him. So let's take a watch here.
We have alien spaceships in our possession. Mm-hmm. We have bodies. Where and why can't I get the specifics to verify those claims?
If the President of the United States issued an executive order that absolves me of all of my TSSCI NDAs. NDAs are non-disclosure agreements. Those are the agreements we have to sign for every compartment in our SCI clearances. So if the President waives or absolves my obligation to those NDAs, and I get subpoenaed by Congress, somebody on Capitol Hill, some committee, either in the Senate or the House or the both, to reveal everything I know that I learned from my investigations, both unclassified and classified, into the legacy UAP, crash retrieval, and hardware reverse engineering and NHI programs, I would do so. If I could be waived from that or absolved in some fashion by presidential order, and if Congress subpoenas me, yes, I would go and tell them everything I know.
Wow. What do y'all think of that? I don't know what to make of it, because first, I don't know if I believe anything Eric Davis says. I don't know. And he went to the, I think it was called the UAP Disclosure Fund. Good Lord. Another Elizondo thing he was involved with. I think he's moved on now. He says voluntarily. I'm guessing they gave a little bit of pressure there, but he's the guy at that UAP disclosure dinner, luncheon, whatever it was, that was talking to Burleson, and he said, oh yeah, there's the four species, gray, insectoid, Nordic, and reptilian. I mean, he's already said that. What more could he possibly say? I don't know. My only interest is the frickin' legacy programs. I feel like by the time, if we ever crack that case, all the people involved are going to be dead and gone. And so A, we're not going to get any additional answers. And B, we're not going to be able to hold anyone accountable for any of the multiple crimes they committed against our own United States citizens. If any of the stories are true about Mill Labs or anything else. So, who is Eric Davis? If you don't know, let's take a look. This was from the Seoul Conference. This was last year. I think it was last summer, in San Francisco. And this is just a little background information he provides there.
After I was in South Korea working at the 8th Fighter Wing in Kunsan for the University of Maryland and the Pacific Air Force, I found a job ad in Physics Today from the National Institute for Discovery Science that was looking for a physicist to work for a new institute. And it looked very interesting. It was actually pretty intriguing. And they talked about in the ad novel types of research topics that the Institute was interested in. So I applied for the job, and to make a long story short, Bob Bigelow hired me, and he was the founder and owner of NIDS. We call it NIDS for short. And I basically worked.
Oh my God, I had to pause this because yes, that is so funny you mentioned that, because I have a part of that one queued up as well. It's so crazy that there's like insane information going on and he's just chowing down. Oh man. I think it was at the same conference. Yeah. Like up in the hotel room or something.
Worked there for 6 years. He hired me as the director for aerospace physics and astrophysics. And 5 of those years I spent working forensic physics type field investigations of the phenomenon at Skinwalker Ranch. Also all around the Uinta Valley there in northeast Utah and elsewhere in the southwest of the United States. And after NIDS, I went to work as a contract principal investigator for the Air Force Research Lab's Advanced Concepts Office, and spent a lot of years supporting advanced or breakthrough propulsion physics and energy, and doing some UAP research for the program manager there, as well as following up the work I had developed and specialized in at NIDS. I carried over to my Air Force work on investigating the shreds of evidence that there existed actual highly classified programs that were running reverse engineering and retrieval of.
Okay, this is this is the thing with Eric Davis. Eric, tell us your background. Elevator pitch. We're like several minutes in, and now he's launched into a story about some classified thing.
Of craft of unknown origin, and or UAPs or UFO craft. And so I continued that work working for AFRL. After AFRL, I got hired by Hal Puthoff, who was one of the members of the Science Advisory Board at NIDS. He was also the last chairman of the boards before Bigelow disbanded the Science Advisory Board. So Hal hired me as his senior research physicist, and I later became the chief science officer. And I worked for him in Austin, Texas, at his Institute for Advanced Studies at Austin, which is the blue sky think tank of the company, his firm and laboratory, Tech International Incorporated. So I worked for him for 15 years in Austin, and that's where I'm still at. And after that folded, I ended up going to work for the Aerospace Corporation at the end of December 2019, where I worked until late this last spring. And I was working at the Marshall Space Flight Center supporting their space nuclear propulsion, their rocket engine development and test flight program. And I also supported the Office of Secretary of Defense's look into using space nuclear fission for propulsion and power, as well as nuclear fission for military applications, on terrestrial applications, I mean. And we also did work for the AFRL's Project Jetson, which is their space nuclear fission power in cislunar space program. So, so now I'm working as a part-time consultant, and I'm looking for a new job.
Well, thank you, Eric. And so now that we know who both of you are, this is an opportunity for the audience to have.
Lord, I just need a breath after that. Thank you, Jess. So many words. He's an expert at that, right? I mean, I don't know. I just have so many doubts about Eric Davis. I sometimes wonder if he's in that same category as like Richard Doty. Like, remember how it got pointed out how Richard would just kind of, like, you could kind of say any story and he'd be like, oh yeah, that's from that one thing. Yeah, I've heard of that. It almost seemed like he would just confirm whatever you took to him. It didn't matter. And Eric Davis almost seems the same way, but like maybe he costs more or something because he's a doctor. I don't know, but it's so strange to hear a doctor say some of the things that he says. But I guess there's some interesting doctors out there, so who am I to judge? However, I question it because is it meant to divert? Is he just a diversion from what we're actually trying to figure out, which is what the fuck is going on? So speaking of the salad lunch. And yeah, Jess, you called it. I think you're right. That's definitely the same jacket, right? Let's just to confirm. Let's see. We go over here. We've got gray jacket. Got a blue button up. Dark slacks. I think we got a match. All right. So yes. Now, the reason I'm chopping this in is because this is Eric Davis talking about the UAP Disclosure Act and UFO secrecy. And we're going to get into the UAP Disclosure Act here shortly. So here's Eric Davis having lunch with UAP Gerb and I can't remember the other guys' names, but UAP Gerb and a couple other folks at this same symposium talking about disclosure. And yeah, I'm sorry, these are the American Alchemy folks.
Public discourse on all of this stuff. And Dr. Jim Lukatsky, he mentioned if he were asked to testify before Congress, he would actually lie before Congress instead of, speaking against his NDAs and to honor his NDAs and the things he's, wants to protect. And so I know that's a bit controversial because at this point, Lou Elizondo has testified. We interviewed him last week, and
they did so under oath.
Yeah.
So Jim didn't say what happens if he takes the oath of if he takes an oath, because if he takes an oath, lying to Congress in a testimony is perjury, and he can go to jail for that. No, and you saw what happened to
the NDA.
Actually, the NDA will prevent him from giving testimony.
But he chooses to.
Yeah, but however, if they issue him a subpoena to appear before Congress, then he's going to have to work with the DOD staff to figure out how he's going to do it. Now, here's how Dave Grush did it. Dave Grush was approved by the Department of Defense. I don't remember what the acronym means anymore. It's DOPSR. Yeah. So DOPSR approved his public testimony and approved what he could say publicly. The rest of what he couldn't say publicly, he said in a classified hearing. So we had a classified hearing on his whistleblower complaint. Jim would have to do the same thing, and Jim should know that. And I worked with him on the OSAP, so I know him. So he I don't know why he was said have to lie before Congress. He knows if you're going to take an oath before the committee, lying is perjury and you're in trouble. Well, and the NDA issue can be worked out with the DOPSR. However, there are times when they don't administer an oath, but you don't want to lie because that'll be a public reputation damage on you.
Right.
If even though you didn't take an oath, but you lied before Congress, you lied.
I know for you, it's kind of a weird state right now because your alleged memo has been entered into congressional record. And so my question is simply this. If you were asked to appear before Congress under oath, would you willingly do that? Would you testify?
I would have to get advice from a lawyer first.
Very smart answer.
Yeah, I'd have to get an advice from a lawyer who has a background in that particular issue because DOD can come after me. And I see.
So I guess we can assume that he has spoken with an attorney and that the attorney said, get an executive order saying you don't have to be held responsible or held accountable to those NDAs you signed, which if everything he says is true, he's probably signed tons of them. But you get an executive order, get those NDAs excused, you can go testify. Maybe there's some things you can't testify to, but for the most part, you get that squared away, you're good to go. God, imagine what we would hear. The things we've heard already from him, imagine what we would hear that he can't talk about. Or that he hasn't been able to. And we know he loves to talk. So it could be some really spectacular stuff. I would love it if he had any information on the legacy programs. Anything. We know, yeah. Anyway, well, so this, we're going to switch over here. This was a recent interview with Mr. Davis, Dr. Davis. This was just, oh gosh, I'm going to have to cheat here. September 21st. Okay, so just a couple months ago. And in this conversation, this part of the conversation, they're again talking about disclosure and getting to the truth of things.
Not true. No, make perfect.
But Sean Kirkpatrick's explanation that it was off of the body of a test missile. Well, that's bullshit, because White Sands missile test range is 150 miles from Corona. And I just, by the way, we'll have to take a quick break because I just lost a hearing aid and I can't hear anything. So battery.
Okay, and for the final question, this question here is not a question that Ross Coulthard has asked. However, it's been making the news lately, which is that, and I just wanted to see simply if you agree with this assessment. Ross Coulthard states that, and I quote, "There appears to be intervention from a very high level in government to stop UAP disclosure. President Trump made a promise during the election campaign that he would try to be more open about the disclosure of UAP imagery. That promise is not being fulfilled," end quote. Do you agree with Ross Coulthard on that assessment?
Yeah, he's right.
Okay.
Remember, President Trump is the highest level authority of the executive branch, not of the other two branches of government. It's only all in the executive branch. The frickin' judges don't have a say. The legislative branch doesn't have a say. The Congress on Capitol Hill. So it's not that it's somebody at the higher level. It's somebody at the highest level, which is the correct term to use. And I think that was in the question, actually. So somebody at a high level can go to President Trump and probably show him the PEDs, one or more of them concerning this specific topic, and saying, sorry, the legality of this as it was derived or defined in the Eisenhower administration is you can't do this.
Gotcha.
You can't disclose.
Right.
And there are consequences if you do. Now, I think on the industry side, industry's got the legacy aerospace industry. They've got security offices, and their security offices aren't going to compromise their government contract by harming American citizens, much less harming the president of the United States. But there are contract security officers they can hire as third-party security who are notorious for doing nasty things to American citizens who work in the legacy industry, defense aerospace industry, as well as the startups. I mean, legacy means they're the old companies that have merged again, and now you got the modern versions after all the mergers have eliminated the previous existing original aerospace companies in America.
That is an interesting take. So they've, on top of all the other secrecy going on, moving these parts all around and giving them to private companies so there's no oversight. You know, you can't subpoena and serve a warrant on a private company for what? You have to know what you're looking for, and they have to be breaking the law. So, yeah. On top of that, you have them over the years merging, buying each other out, moving stuff around. It just makes it that much more complicated over time to figure it out.
Those they work with, I think they work with the security officers, the third-party security. There's lawyers involved with those companies. There are sole source contract legalities involved with this topic. There are the methods of hiding the program from auditing and oversight. There's all of this that comes together, and the biggest number one issue is compromising a company's proprietary information, because to take this out of the national security system so it cannot be FOIA'd or given to Congress, you got to put it into the proprietary information protection system of industry.
Right.
That's been judicially tested for centuries. And one thing the Supreme Court of the United States and all the appellate courts below it have always said, including judges, is you cannot violate proprietary information or intellectual property right protection of any capital enterprise of the United States, incorporated entities.
Right.
You can't do it. It's illegal. It's illegal for the constitutional reasons, and they'll cite the constitutional reason.
Right.
So you're gonna get these voices that are going to be brought together under the direction of a PED that's going to tell the president, under no circumstance can you do this. So I think this is going on with President Trump not going forward to fulfill his campaign promise to declassify more of the military sensor platforms and military weapon and military other platforms, or I should say other military platforms that have clear and unambiguous high caliber, high precision detections of UAPs, is because it's gonna reveal too much about the existence of the platforms, number one, the sensing systems, number two, and it's gonna probably be a little too much for the American public to want to digest or be able to digest when they see what's on those videos. This isn't just a matter of a triangle going into the ocean and flying back out of the ocean again. It's more than that.
Wow.
Much more than that. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
What the fuck does that mean? Whoa. Yeah, I'm gonna go back just a few seconds here because that sounded intense.
Or be able to digest when they see what's on. You're going to get these voices that are going to be brought together under the direction of a PED that's going to tell the president, under no circumstance can you do this. So I think this is going on with President Trump not going forward to fulfill his campaign promise to declassify more of the military sensor platforms and military weapon and military other platforms, or I should say other military platforms that have clear and unambiguous high caliber, high precision detections of UAPs, is because it's gonna reveal too much about the existence of the platforms, number one, the sensing systems, number two, and it's gonna probably be a little too much for the American public to want to digest or be able to digest when they see what's on those videos. This isn't just a matter of a triangle going into the ocean and flying back out of the ocean again. It's more than that.
Wow.
Much more than that. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Dr.
Either it's more than we could digest or more than we would want to digest. Holy shit. I mean, he's saying it's basically going to be impossible for us to get it because it will reveal, some defense technology that we use to monitor the skies or whatever. But to say it's more than we could handle, what? Wow, what could that possibly be? Disclosure. The UAPDA was attached to the NDAA, as you all know if you watch any of my or sit into any of my podcasts, which was the problem. And I remember just screaming it from the rooftops, it's going to be a problem. It's attached to the NDAA. It's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. And it was a problem because you can't ask a Republican representative from the South to vote against the NDAA, which is what Representative Burleson would have had to have done. It's the National Defense Authorization Act. You're going to vote against that? You want to be a Republican that votes against the National Defense Authorization Act? That's going to make everything an uphill climb going forward, because they're going to slam you for that big time. And so is your opposition. They're going to slam you for that, and they're going to make sure all of your constituents know you voted against the NDAA. You don't want to defend the country. You don't want to pay our soldiers. What is wrong with you? No, I just don't agree with a part of the bit. Doesn't matter. Y'all know that. It's whose voice is loudest. You are unpatriotic son of a bitch. So it needs to be a standalone bill. It needs to be its own bill to force these representatives to have the debate and to actually vote for it and put it into law. You understand, like, the first UAP Disclosure Act that passed was attached to the NDAA as well. And because that was attached to the NDAA, they were able to gut it. There was no oversight. We were supposed to have an individual panel with no connection to the intelligence community, with no connection to the Department of Defense, an individual oversight panel. We didn't get that. We didn't get close to that. What we got was them saying, okay, we'll send some of our old declassified UAP videos to the archives for people to pick through. And that's what they did. Of the members on the UAP task force, Nancy Mace, Eric Burleson, and Andy Ogles all voted for the NDAA in 2024, essentially voting against the UAP Disclosure Act, and they are on the UAP task force. Now, credit to Representative Tim Burchett, Representative Anna Paulina Luna, and Representative Jared Mauskowitz. Despite the toll it would take on them politically, they felt strong enough about the UAP Disclosure Act to not vote for the NDAA unless it was included. And that could damage their political careers. So did Burleson take the easy way out? What do you all think? I get it. I just explained his case, right? That he's from the South and he can't vote against it. But Luna, Burchett, and Mauskowitz voted against it. So why couldn't Burleson? Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know either, y'all. But we do have Eric Burleson here talking about the UAP Disclosure Act, and this was the Danny Sheehan's New Paradigm Institute Disclosure Day. It's a really cool broadcast. If you go through all, I think it's like several hours long, 6, 7, 8 hours long or something. I think it's 2 of them. But this is Eric Burleson during that day talking about the UAP Disclosure Act and what to do going forward.
Eric Burleson, give us an update from the U.S. Congress as to the current state of disclosure.
Thank you, everybody. And it's good to see so many friendly faces and people that I've come to know over the last couple of years in this journey down the rabbit hole, if you will. I really felt that it's my job to take this seriously, particularly when we had pilots and other people that were consistently coming forward and expressing concerns. And so to me, I feel like what was lacking is a serious investigation or a serious attempt to actually get to the bottom of it. And so that's kind of what my approach has been. Been heads down on it for the last year or so. And particularly after I saw the first, or was part of the first hearing with David Grush, I became aware, just from the private sector coming in to, the way Congress works, became just frustrated with the focus and attention of the people the staff that we were relying on, particularly staff that were, in some cases, we would be in meetings and they would giggle and walk out of the room when this topic would come up. And so, it's unfortunate, but became abundantly clear to me that we needed to have staff that A, understood the intelligence community and how to navigate that system, and then B, that actually wanted to, felt the same desire and wanted to get to the bottom of this, that I do, and that others on the committee do as well. And so that's why I had pushed for David Grush or someone that like him to be hired. The committee did not accept, the committee staff did not accept that. So I basically bent over backwards to try to figure out how to navigate a way in which to bring him onto my team. And so that we could at least have some level of senior consulting as we investigate this topic. And he has been a tremendous asset to me and everybody else on the committee. And so because he was not hired by the committee staff and hired by me, he has to consult me. He's not allowed to be basically an extra employee for the committee. So that's how we've kind of had to navigate that. But I think it's been very productive. I felt like in our journey, where we're at is we had the last hearing. I think that most of the people that are going to come forward have come forward at this point. We've shaken.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to, I have a video clip of the part I wanted to get
focus is to continue.
But I do think that that's interesting what he just said there, that he thinks everyone that was going to testify by this point has pretty much testified. Are you kidding me? There's been like 7 or 8 people that have testified, and I know people that are clamoring to testify, that are begging to testify. It makes you wonder about the whole thing. It really does. But here's the snippet I really wanted to get to, and it's followed up by some Danny Sheehan monologue about a new UAP Disclosure Act.
So my focus is to continue to try to get that amendment through as a standalone bill, and I'm working with Danny Sheehan, which means that we can focus our political capital on the chair, which I think that the chair would probably be Mike Rogers, and that would be under his purview, and probably under intelligence, which would be under Rick Crawford, and there may be a component that Jim Jordan has an involvement with. But that's narrowing the number of people that we would have to focus on in order to make movement happen. And so the fact that leadership has said, you get it out of committee, we will give it a vote on the floor, that's a strong indicator. And really, we just have to get the bill to that place so we can hold their feet to that commitment.
I wasn't sure I was going to be able to talk about this today, but Congressman Burleson has resolved that he is going to be willing to place a standalone bill into the House of Representatives. This is extraordinarily important because it provides a focus for all of the citizens around the country to focus on a particular objective, to get this particular statute through the committees that it has to go through in the House in order to get onto the floor of the House. This is extraordinarily important.
And he's right. We're not going to get any accountability from the government about any current or legacy UFO programs without the UAP Disclosure Act or similar legislation. Like, it's just not gonna happen. There's just no way these people are gonna come forward voluntarily. Eric Davis is the closest we have to that. And it makes you wonder if he's just not completely full of shit. Because I feel like the people that were really involved in this, a lot of them, we just don't hear from. We get the occasional deathbed confession, which I gotta say, of all of everything American Alchemy has brought to the table, the Harold Malmgren interview was probably, to me, the most earth-shattering. Like, that was essentially a deathbed confession, y'all. I mean, I believe he died like the next day or two. So that was essentially a deathbed confession. And if you didn't watch that episode of American Alchemy, do yourself a favor if you follow this topic at all and watch that episode of American Alchemy, because Harold Malmgren was at the very upper echelons of the government for a very long time. And he talks about handling some of this NHI material in the freaking Oval Office. Yeah. So if you haven't watched that interview, it's definitely worth your time. All right. So UAP Disclosure Act Part 2, whatever it is, whatever they call it, we will have an update. We will figure it out. We will drop it anywhere where we send messages out, X, Facebook, YouTube, all the things. And we will let you all know as soon as we know what the plan is, whether it's going to be UAP Disclosure Act Part 2 or whether it's going to be called something else. I think the important thing is that, like Rep. Burleson said, it's a standalone bill, meaning it's not attached to a bill that can screw you, because that's essentially what they did with the NDAA. I mean, these cats are playing 4D chess, y'all. It isn't like that happened by chance. They knew way back when the UAP task force was put together. These people behind the scenes knew back then. If whatever they decide on gets attached to a particular bill we know they can't vote against, we can get in there, We can gut it, or we can just completely remove it and get it through. And that is exactly what they did. And God bless Representative Eric Burleson. I love what he's trying to do with the UAP task force, but he seemed caught off guard, like he wasn't prepared for it. So we need folks on this UAP task force. We need more David Grushes on this UAP task force. We need more folks that are playing 5D chess, not checkers. Okay, moving on from that story, we're going to go to Varginha, Brazil. If you haven't heard this update, this is pretty interesting. So we have the story of what happened in Varginha, Brazil. James Fox, the gentleman that we just saw interview Eric Davis, who Eric Davis just said he would testify if he was given amnesty for his NDAs, made a documentary called Moment of Truth about the Varginha, Brazil incident. To refresh your memory, this is a trailer for that documentary.
In 1996, the people of Varginha, Brazil, witnessed a UFO event that would change their lives forever.
Só que ele planava, ia perdendo lentamente a altitude e ia caminhando.
Call it another Roswell, if you will. It is a crashed vehicle that had beings on board.
Mas que eles não poderiam admitir a verdade. A população ia entrar em colapso.
Nada temos a esconder. Finally, the facts will be revealed.
The Varginha case is considered the most well-kept secret in the military circles of Brazil.
My objective here is to put some clarity on what took place in Varginha, Brazil, January 1996.
2 seres extraterrestres foram capturados, depois, posteriormente, foram levados para o hospital.
The witnesses are some of the most compelling testimony I've ever heard.
Meu nome é Carlos de Souza.
Meu nome é Cátia Xavier.
Meu nome é Liliane Silva.
Meu nome é Valquíria Silva.
Em 1996, eu vi uma criatura estranha ali.
Action! A lot of people in this town have a little piece of the puzzle.
Naquele local, eu vi o rastro da criatura, o pé.
Foi onde ele falou que eu vi era uma coisa sobrenatural.
This year,
Mark Elixerez, he had captured this creature with his bare hands.
Você confirma que o seu irmão estava de serviço naquele dia 20?
Confirmo.
After he captured the creature, he developed this infection that wouldn't go away.
Foi pro CTI de manhã, 7 horas da manhã, 15 para o meio-dia, ele veio a óbito.
This can no longer be covered up.
They might shoot us because we're on the property.
This can't be denied.
Bateram na porta e aí falaram para mim.
Ficar quieto. Se qualquer iria sofrer uma punição muito severa.
This was proof.
We pull this off. It'll be the most compelling testimony revealed.
Of contact.
Aqui, ó. Foi aqui.
This is a level of confirmation that only a handful of people on this planet have.
Wow, right? You can actually watch that documentary on YouTube right now. I know James Fox would appreciate it. It's well done and well put together. I think James Fox is a fine producer, filmmaker. I think he does a good job. Touching on the last thing, I saw Jess post this comment. Pushing the UAP Disclosure Act did have an impact in helping to identify certain players working against the bill. And absolutely, that is a fantastic point, right? We saw Eric Burleson in that interview kind of doing the math in his head of, you know, which votes he could count on, who he thinks they could flip, who might change their mind, so on and so forth. So yeah, absolutely. It did have some good. I think that's awesome to look at the glass half full for sure. Okay. Back to the Varginha case. So you saw in that trailer, they say that at one point there's this alien being and multiple people handled it. Well, one person handled it, but there were multiple people there. One person handled it mostly. And they took it to a hospital. And then from the hospital, the U.S. Air Force, we're assuming, came in and swooped the body away. The reason we're talking about this is because last week, a surgeon from that hospital has come forward to tell his story. This was not in the documentary, which probably means, I mean, he must have known about the documentary and maybe just didn't want to be a part of it. Maybe he was scared to, I don't know. But recently came on News Nation and gave his story. Now, I haven't even seen this yet, so I'm excited. Let's hear. This was a doctor that was at that hospital in Varginha, Brazil on that night. Now, Ross and James are going to talk a little bit about the incident first and then kind of lead into the interview with the doctor here.
That's good. So you set this up perfectly now. Is this where Dr. Italo Venturelli comes across the being?
Exactly. Yes. Yep. So we had, up until this point, we had testimony from a military officer who we found that he took a creature from Humanitas Hospital because it went from the first little clinic, didn't get out of the car. Then it went to regional, got out of the car, was delivered, taken indoor. In fact, I was just at regional hospital like 2 weeks ago, and I went to the front desk, the main entry point, and I said, hey, you know, this incident, and they got a big plaque out front. This is where an ET came. It's all right out in the open. Nobody's hiding this story. Sure. And I asked the people at the desk coming into the ER, hey, have you guys heard? Oh, yeah. One of the people that was there that night still working here now. And they said, the creature, no, I'm not kidding you. I swear to you. And they said, and they got a big plaque outside. I can share you a picture of it talking about the events. But they took the ET in the back entrance. They said they did not come in the front. They took it in the back.
Did the person you spoke to, aside from Dr. Italo, did they also see the alien being?
Good question. We only had 24 more hours before we were flying home. We got the details. We got the contact information of that individual that was there that night. Don't know. Didn't have a chance to talk to them. Don't know if they.
That's what I love about this, James. Is you've been coming and going from this city now for years, and each time you go back, you get more layers of factual information that corroborate what you originally uncovered.
You got to hear So now we have, for the first time ever, because we have this military police officer who we got to come forward, and he drove a creature from Humanitas to EZA military base, and then EZA, Campinas, and that's when the Americans came in, right? So now, for the first time ever, we have firsthand eyewitness testimony from the lead neurosurgeon still at the hospital who describes face-to-face contact with the live alien for 4 minutes. It's incredible.
So at this point, James, with your permission, we're going to roll the little sizzle grab you've given us from Dr. Italo Venturelli. Here's Dr. Italo.
Meu nome é Ítalo Venturelli, estudei em São Paulo, fiz neurologia, neurocirurgia, fiz mais de 5.000 cirurgias. Só queria deixar essa mensagem que eu realmente vi. No dia fui ver como se eu tivesse ido ver um paciente, e não era um paciente, realmente era um alien, claramente um alien. O crânio era em forma de gota, os olhos em forma de gota, eu fui ver um paciente, achando que era um humano. E eu vi ali um ser maravilhoso de um mundo que eu não conheço. Me pergunto se estava sofrendo, ele não estava sofrendo, se ele estava entendendo, ele estava entendendo. Muito calmo, muito tranquilo, olhou para mim como se entendesse tudo que eu estava pensando. Eu acho bacana conversar isso, explicar para as pessoas que existem muito mais coisas do que a gente imagina. Para mim foi muito importante ver, porque eu vi a imensidão que tem esse universo, né? Não somos só nós aqui, nesse mundo tão maravilhoso, mas deve existir muitos outros, e aquele ser que estava ali é prova disso.
What I love, James, about Dr. Italo is he's very open about the fact that this being touched him. He seems quite emotional about the experience.
So, okay, I'll tell you how this came about, because it's extraordinary what happened.
That is wild, y'all. I mean, he said he performed how many surgeries? Like over a couple thousand. Jess, yeah. I wonder if it looked like it was just a snippet. So I'm betting maybe we'll see a full interview come soon, hopefully from News Nation. But that's what I was thinking too, was that he didn't mention the smell, and all the witnesses talked about just the god awful smell that these things, it was like rancid, and it was there apparently for like a day or two afterwards, still just lingering, just this awful smell, I guess. So yeah, hopefully we'll see that interview. It looked like just a snippet, and we'll see if he mentions that. But yeah, what a crazy thing. Okay, and while we're on James Fox, I did want to play this snippet as well, because I think it's relative to kind of what we've been covering today, just the overall disclosure and kind of UFO landscape. I thought this was a very interesting story from James Fox. It's an older one. This was from the Danny Jones podcast. I think they still called it Concrete. I don't know if they call it Concrete still. But it's an interesting snippet. Check this out.
I just need to really emphasize this to everybody out there so you understand what I'm telling you. I'm not saying I believe what I'm about to tell you, okay? I need to see more evidence. I'm not saying I don't believe it,
right? But
I don't just believe something because someone told me that. I need to see supporting evidence. I need to hear testimony. I need a lot more. What's taken me as long as it has with all the other cases that I investigate. I don't just like believe a case. Okay, so Robert Bigelow said to me, "They're walking among us." I said, "What do you mean they're walking among us?" He said, they're walking among us. They live right here, kind of thing. So again, I'm looking at him going, I need to see, and I'd like to see some proof of that.
Right.
But then he said, we've done studies. We've done extensive studies on the impacts of this story would have on the general population globally. And I said,
Interesting.
Okay. Well, like what kind of studies? He goes, well, you take Iran Contra and you take all these other like super big scandals, and you multiply those, every one of them that's ever happened in the history of mankind, in modern history, and then you multiply that by 1 million, and that's the impact, according to our studies, that this reality would have on the general public. He said the economy would collapse, organized religion would collapse, and he just rattled off all that. Like, again, I'm not saying that I believe this. I'm just telling you what he said to me.
How could you possibly conduct a study on that? I could see how you could gather, you could collect data on individuals, but how could you possibly do a study on an entire civilization or a large group of people? Like, how would you do that?
That's what he
Whoop, apologies, y'all. Cut that off a little bit early, but yeah, they're walking amongst us. Pretty haunting words, especially coming from Robert Bigelow. Like, if you know anything about Robert Bigelow, is that man he's spent more money and time and energy researching not just UFOs, but afterlife and NDEs, near-death experiences. And for him to say they're walking amongst us, I think holds some weight. That could mean a lot of things, right? First off, what are they? That's where I would start at. And then second, walking amongst us, like in our dimension, and in our realm, in our time. That's the thing with Bigelow. It could mean so many things. You know, of all the potential and past deathbed confessions, that would be one. Holy shit. I would love. Could you imagine if Robert Bigelow just let all the cats out of the bag and just let it all out? Oh man. We would have some pretty big revelations, I think. All right. Let's moving on here. Our final story for today is a new NASA administrator. So Trump came out on Truth Social. Sean Duffy has done an incredible job as the interim administrator of NASA. This evening, I am pleased to nominate Jared Isaacman, an accomplished business leader, philanthropist, pilot, and astronaut, as administrator of NASA. Jared's passion for space, astronaut experience, and dedication to pushing the boundaries of exploration, unlocking the mysteries of the new universe, and advancing the new space economy, make him ideally suited to lead NASA into a bold new era. Congratulations to Jared and his wife and their children, so on and so forth. So, all sounds sweet and nice. But do you all remember, like, I don't even know how long it was, a few months ago, when Elon and Trump had their little spat? Well, apparently Jared is a friend of Elon. So 6 months ago, Jared was up for this exact job. He went through an entire panel, Senate committee interview, did all of it. And then at the last second, before they could confirm him, withdrawed his name. And then they stuck Sean Duffy in there. And now he's coming back. Well, I thought that's strange. But if we go back to an earlier Truth Social post, when Donald Trump was having his argument with Elon, a very long Truth Social post, if you get down towards the bottom of it, I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm saddened, Elon Musk, you suck, He says he's not, no more EV mandate. I mean, what a, I have campaigned on this for 2 years, and quite honestly, when Elon gave me his total and unquestioned endorsement, I asked him whether or not he knew what I was going to terminate. I asked him whether or not he knew that I was going to terminate the EV mandate. It was in every speech I made and in every conversation I had. He said he had no problems with that. I was very surprised. Additionally, Elon asked that one of his close friends run NASA. And while I thought his friend was very good, I was surprised to learn that he was a blue-blooded Democrat who had never contributed to a Republican before. Elon probably was also. I also thought it inappropriate that a very close friend of Elon, who is in the space business, run NASA, when NASA is such a big part of Elon's corporate life. My number one charge is to protect the American public. So, that is why Jared Isaacman had his name withdrawn the first time. Now we know. However, it does give us an opportunity, because they kind of went through this process already once, to take a peek at some of that. Now, this isn't the actual confirmation hearing. This is another hearing. I believe the actual confirmation hearing, as I understand it, is not even available. But this is NASA's hearing. NASA's video of the nomination hearing for Jared as administrator. I know very little, basically nothing about Mr. Isaacman, but he's about to be the administrator of NASA. So I figured this would be a great opportunity for us all to see who this gentleman is.
And with that, I recognize the junior senator from Montana, Senator Sheehy, to introduce Mr. Isaacman.
Had to put junior in front of it, didn't you, Ted? For nearly 70 years,
I'm still the junior senator from Texas. This place that could stick around a long time.
I am the longest serving junior member. So yeah, 24 years, you could still be the junior member. I wear it with a badge of honor. Okay.
Well, thank you, Chairman and Ranking Member. For nearly 70 years, the United States has been at the forefront of space exploration. President Trump knows how critical it is for our country to lead the way yet again as our space program aims to reach new heights. And that's why he chose exactly the right man for the job, Jared Isaacman. I've personally known Jared for several years, sharing an aviation community in Montana and cooperating with him on improving the education experience for our next generation of explorers, astronauts, engineers, and pilots who attend space camp at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, Alabama. Of note, both Jared and I attended space camp, an arduous 5-day program for small children, and I would say it lit a spark in both of us to chase the dream of aviation and aerospace. We both dreamed of being astronauts as children. The difference is Jared actually is one, whereas I had to settle for the decidedly less cool title of senator. America has been the leader of global space travel for generations, pushing the boundaries of science and testing the limits of human endurance and intellect. All Americans should be deeply proud of the incredible accomplishments of heroes like Alan Shepard, John Glenn, Neil Armstrong, Jim Lovell, and many others. The sacrifice and leadership of these brave astronauts is what most Americans know well. What they usually don't know is that behind each and every one of these heroes, many of whom sitting in front of us, is a massive team of dedicated engineers, program managers, innovators, test pilots, welders, electricians, truck drivers, and families who are the true heroes of our space program. To lead this incredible team requires a leader who not only understands and believes in the mission, but also has the interdisciplinary skill sets to coordinate these cross-functional teams to achieve critical outcomes. As we have unfortunately seen in recent days, NASA is struggling. And what's worse, it has been struggling for the past couple of decades. Since the tragedy of the Columbia disaster in 2003, which I remember like it was yesterday as I was preparing to enter the pool for a high school swim meet, NASA has been a struggling organization full of great people, searching for revival. For 10 years, the United States of America was paying the Russian government taxi fare to send our own astronauts into space. This would make JFK and Ronald Reagan turn in their graves. And in light of the recent Starliner mission to the ISS that left astronauts stuck in space for 9 months, we are reminded that much work still remains. President Trump, and Elon Musk, who's one of our greatest space entrepreneurs, both knew it was time for a change. And enter Jared Isaacman. Despite his childhood desire to be an Air Force pilot and an astronaut, Jared found out that he was smarter than most and started a disruptive software company in his garage as a teenager. That company grew to be a tremendous multi-billion-dollar success, and that success fueled his ascension into the Hall of Fame as a record-setting jet pilot, an aggressive fighter pilot for our Air Force, combat pilots, and most recently, the first civilian astronaut to ever conduct a spacewalk. On top of all that, Jared and I share another passion, pediatric philanthropy. Jared has personally donated millions of dollars to improve healthcare for at-risk children all over America, a cause which brought us together. NASA is at a point of great pride for a generation. It represents a moral obligation for us to continue to lead in the greatest frontier ever known, and it deserves strong leadership. Jared is an articulate leader, a great father and husband, and one of the smartest people in America. Jared understands not only how to manage complex multi-billion-dollar organizations, but also how to design and engineer critical systems. And to top it all off, he knows how to fly spaceships. America has given us a mandate to push the boundaries of outer space, and NASA is in need of spiritual and organizational rejuvenation, and that will take fresh, bold leadership. Jared is the perfect man for the job, and I look forward to adding NASA administrator to his already remarkable resume. Thank you.
Thank you. I now recognize Mr. Isaacman for his opening statement.
Thank you, and Senator Sheehy for the very generous introduction. Thank you, Chairman Cruz, Ranking Member Cantwell, distinguished members of the committee. I'm honored and very grateful to be here before you today as President Donald Trump's nominee to lead the National Aeronautic and Space Administration. I have lived the American dream, and I owe this nation a great debt. I would happily serve President Trump in any capacity, but to work alongside the people that have expanded the boundaries of exploration and brought humanity closer to the stars would be the privilege of a lifetime. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge my crewmates, as you did earlier, Senator, along with my wife, Monica, and my two wonderful daughters that are sitting behind me, Mila and Liv. I do recognize I am a newcomer, so I thought I would share a bit about my story, along with my understanding of the challenges and the opportunities that lie ahead. I am an entrepreneur, and my journey began when I took a risk and left school at age 16 to build a company in my parents' basement. Despite my unconventional start, I found success very early in life and led my company into a multi-billion-dollar enterprise that employs thousands. I'm a pilot with an aeronautics degree. Over the last 20 years, I've flown over 7,000 hours in jets and ex-military aircraft, setting world records and performing in air shows. My passion for aviation also led me to start another company, this time a defense aerospace business. As a company, we operated the world's largest private air force. Our job was to fly fighter jets as adversaries, executing enemy tactics and training American warfighters. We managed hundreds of millions in defense contracts and saved taxpayers billions along the way. I'm also an astronaut. Alongside a talented team, I led 2 record-breaking missions to space. On my last mission, we tested a new spacesuit while performing a spacewalk and orbited farther away from Earth than any human has gone since the last time Americans walked on the moon. Along the way, my 2 crewmates, Sarah Gillis and Anna Menon, became the women who've journeyed farthest from Earth ever. I'm an advocate for science. During these missions to space, my crew and I performed approximately 50 science and research experiments. I've also publicly supported the Chandra X-ray Observatory and offered to fund a mission to extend the life and capabilities of the Hubble Space Telescope. I care about the people back at home and our collective future here on Earth. My space career did not burden the taxpayers. They were privately funded and aimed at inspiring and helping people all over the world. One example is the over $250 million we raised to support St. Jude Children's Research Hospital and their critical work to ensure no child dies in the dawn of life. Alongside these efforts, I personally donated hundreds of millions of dollars to charitable endeavors. I share all of this because I am not a typical nominee for this position. I've been relatively apolitical. I am not a scientist. I never worked at NASA. I do not think these are weaknesses. In fact, I believe President Trump found them to be strengths. And if confirmed, I will bring all my experience to the greatest adventure in human history, the quest to discover the secrets of the universe. On that note, NASA is the most accomplished and respected space agency in the world, but for all NASA's historic achievements, the agency is not without challenges. Presidents have called for a return to the moon and a path to Mars since 1989, and well over $100 billion has been spent without the intended results. Most programs, new telescopes, rovers, X-planes, entire spaceships, are over budget and behind schedule. And this is discouraging because when people look up at the stars and wonder what is out there, they want those answers today and not decades down the road. And I know it is not lost on members of this committee that we have geopolitical rivals moving at impressive speeds. It's imperative for our national security, our pride, and all that we stand to gain in exploration that we never come in second place. If confirmed, and with the support and guidance of President Trump and members of Congress, we will reinvigorate a mission-first culture at NASA with the following objectives. First, American astronauts will lead the way in the ultimate high ground of space. As the President stated, we will prioritize sending American astronauts to Mars, and along the way, we will inevitably have the capabilities to return to the moon and determine the scientific, economic, and national security benefits for maintaining a presence on the lunar surface. We will focus our technology development efforts on the world's greatest engineering challenges, such as the practical application of nuclear propulsion, so we can truly unlock humankind's ability to explore among the stars. Second, we will ignite a thriving space economy in low Earth orbit. By working alongside international partners in industry, we can unlock the true economic potential of space and deliver meaningful benefits to the American people, potentially even charting a course for NASA to become a financially self-sustaining agency. Number three, NASA will be a force multiplier for science. We will leverage NASA's scientific talent and capabilities to enable academic institutions and industry to increase the rate of world-changing discoveries. We will launch more telescopes, more probes, more rovers, and endeavor to better understand our planet and the universe beyond. If confirmed, I will work alongside and recruit the most talented minds this nation has to offer, and we will concentrate our resources towards achieving the near impossible, the objectives that no other agency, company, or institution is capable of accomplishing. We will do so knowing the risks and the groundbreaking opportunities that lie ahead, because some risks, like exploring the worlds beyond ours, are worth taking. We will do this not just to expand our knowledge or strengthen our national security, but to improve all life here on Earth and inspire the next generation to reach even further. This is why America needs NASA, why the world needs NASA, because there is no more important investment than inspiring our children to build a better and more exciting future. And the best way NASA can do that is by delivering on our mission and ushering in a new golden age of science and discovery, and we will not fail. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Trustee.
Thank you. Chairman Cruz, Ranking Member Cantwell, members of the committee, thank you for convening this hearing. Senator Wicker, thank you so much for your very kind introduction. It has been a privilege to work with you on your staff for nearly 8 years, serving the people of Mississippi and all Americans. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I also thank President Trump for the incredible honor of this nomination to be a commissioner at the Federal Communications Commission.
Great point, Jen. Yeah, rainbows and unicorns. Jen doesn't think they have the money to do all that stuff he's talking about. And they probably don't. The thing that stuck out to me was him saying a self-sustaining organization. Oh, what the heck? I thought I was subscribed to NASA already. Weird. Yeah, a self-sustaining organization. I mean, NASA was never supposed to be a self-sustaining organization, right? I feel like this is where stuff gets ruined. The news was never supposed to be profitable. Like way back in the day when there was radio and then it became television, there was a few networks and they made ungodly amounts of money. The news was something they provided as a service. It wasn't supposed to make a they already made so much stupid money from television. The news was a service they were providing. Once the news had to start paying for itself and had to start making money, it became the shit that we see today, which is an absolute shit show. It's not about being accurate or correct. It's about being first. It's not about taking your time and doing in-depth reporting and thinking things through. It's about triggering a quick emotional response that will keep you anxious and keep you on edge and keep you tuned in through that commercial break until you come back. That's the news. It's not news. It's entertainment. I mean, news is the subject, but it's essentially a form of entertainment. If NASA is supposed to be self-sustaining or even like make a profit, what is NASA going to become? Makes you wonder. At any rate, I will say Mr. Isaacman sounds extremely accomplished. Definitely sounds like the guy's got an insanely good head on his shoulders. Did you hear that resume? Astronaut, pilot, entrepreneur, philanthropist. He's given hundreds of millions of dollars in philanthropy. Fuck, that's more than any of us will make in our lifetime. He's given that away. So I would say this is a passion for him, obviously. And those are the kind of people you want running these programs, because that's what it takes, is an insane amount of passion for what you're doing. So I don't think they'll have a problem getting confirmed. Again, this was the old confirmation hearing, so now they're going to have to do it again, I think. They'll have a new confirmation hearing, and then confirmation. So we'll keep our finger on that in the future and see how that goes. Well, that does it, y'all. Right around 2 hours. Not too bad getting through all the updates that we had. What a crazy, crazy couple weeks it's been. We talked about Trump's drone company. Is it legal what he did? Probably. Is it ethical what he did? Probably not. But again, as we talked about, this is done time and time and time again from people around the president, in particular their children on a few occasions, right? We talked about Davis's executive order, asking Trump to basically sign an order saying that he would not be liable for any of the NDAs that he signed, so he could then testify and let all the secrets out. The interesting thing about an executive order is it's not passed by Congress. It's an executive order, which means like the next president could come in and just undo it. So I'm not sure if Dr. Davis thought that one through all the way. We talked about Varginha, the snippet interview we got with the neurosurgeon who confirms there was an alien in the hospital, and it was kind of a earth-shattering event for him. Once Mr. Fox puts up that full interview on News Nation, I'm sure I'll have a space on that because that sounds like it'll be super interesting. Interested to know why he wasn't in the first documentary. I wonder if there was some fuckery going on there. We talked about the UAP Disclosure Act being a standalone bill instead of being attached to the NDAA down the road. That's the only way it's going to get through, is if it's a standalone bill and it's not attached to something else. If it can't get through as a standalone bill, it's not going to get through anyway. I mean, that's period. So call your senators, call your representatives, let them know you want the UAP Disclosure Act done. You want it to be a standalone bill. That's what we can do as citizens. I know it sounds hokey. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's just a phone call. Just find your representative's phone number, give them a call, and let them know this is something that you care about. All right. And lastly, we covered Jared Isaacman at NASA. Seems like, at least first impression, a very accomplished gentleman. And we'll see where that goes. All right. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the week, a great Wednesday, and we'll see you next time.